Yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the height, we had I guess a couple hundred people coming through the door, whether it's children, staff, families, and, just other people that were involved in different capacities. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it really was about creating an environment that, you know, our simple purpose statement is building people up so we may in turn build up others. And
I
so,
love that. I
and
love
we
that.
had that at Little Sprouts as well. And I would always say, like, whether it's obviously those people that I just mentioned, or even if it's the male man or woman coming in the door, hey, why not? I mean, it really doesn't take much. Of course, you can get complicated, but it doesn't take much to just encourage somebody and try to build them up. So,
Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Eddie Austin BEX podcast. I have a great guest on this morning and a friend of mine and a local that's in the real estate investing community as well. He has Cornerstone Capital Investment Group. Please welcome Joe Lawrence. How are you this morning?
thanks, Eddie. Great to be here with you.
Man, talk a little bit about who you are, what you do, and all the amazing things. I see you on Facebook all over the place. You do a lot of mission-driven trips, which is just, man, that soothes my soul right there. I love seeing faith-based entrepreneurs, and I believe that's you in a nutshell.
Yeah, so if I were to go to the core there, I'm a follower of Christ, and my wife and I are involved in a local church, and we feel that that's kind of the core of who we are. I'm a teacher by education. By default, my mom and sister were teachers, and I went to school to play football out of high school. And thankfully, thank God I got into education and really found a passion for it, and actually went overseas to Taiwan after I graduated to teach 4-year-old kindergarten. And that's
Wow.
actually where I met my wife, Lucy. So
Wow.
I had plans to stay in La Crosse, Wisconsin. I love the area, just beautiful. Second home for me. My dad grew up there. Took me to Taiwan instead. And so I spent 2 years there. Great experience. Obviously, met my wife. And so we decided to get married and move back to Wisconsin to teach. And
Hmm.
Lucy ended up getting a job in a new foreign exchange student program, more like a boarding school. Our old high school, my old high school, was starting this foreign exchange student program. All that to say, I taught first grade. My degree is elementary ed and early childhood. So we were thinking about opening up a school, childcare preschool center in Taiwan. Lucy did basically everything but teaching, including leadership, payroll. Her background is public finance and tax, and also has a master's in marketing. So we knew that those skills would lend well together, knowledge of education and early childhood. And that busy year in Ladysmith really catapulted us into thinking about halfway through the year. Okay, we were really interested in making a bigger impact, leading and starting our own small school, our own business. And so, long story short, we moved about an hour and a half away, found a building, renovated the building, 18-hour days that summer of 2011, and opened that fall. And so that started a journey of business ownership. We were thrust
Yeah.
into it, thought we'd be great at it, and had a lot to learn. But um, that grew, and we rented a few classrooms a few years later because we grew and were bursting at the seams from our church down the road. And then after a couple of years, we continued to look. We wanted to add on to our original building, great kind of natural setting with woods back behind. And that just wasn't going to work out. And
Hmm.
we ended up building a new building.
Hmm.
And then we renovated another building in Burnsville, Minnesota, just south of the airport there in the Twin Cities.
Hmm.
And so all that to say, real estate really, leadership, business, being an entrepreneur was really a passion of ours at that point, about 10 years later. And real estate also was a big passion, really creating spaces for people for us, it was for our business, for the kids to enjoy, the staff to enjoy and feel welcomed. And and also for the families. Went through COVID. We had finished the major part of the remodel. Then COVID hit in Burnsville, and so that threw a wrench in our
Mm.
plans. But we were very blessed through that to just continue to stay the course. And we worked on some more things at both locations that we knew would help set us up for success once getting through COVID. And then we had the opportunity to sell.
That's the
Kind of,
magical part, right?
yeah, sort of out of nowhere, sort of, we thought that we'd be doing this forever. So having gone through COVID, I think we all, were reflecting and kind of questioning most things in our lives. For obviously, I wasn't questioning God, but we thought, hey, we at least should have an idea of what it would take to sell, and what it would be worth. Especially if another COVID situation happened and we had to. And so we listened to the broker that approached us for like the fifth time, and it snowballed. I don't want to make a long story there, but it snowballed. And about 6 months later, after a lot of prayers and a ton of due diligence work, we had the two businesses and then the two buildings with that. So there was kind of four things for sale, four PSAs, four due diligence checklists, etc. And that was a lot of work, and we realized that at any moment the deals could fall through, and so we just kept going and kept operating, and then we closed.
That's awesome,
And
man. Well,
there was a little bit
congratulations on
of
that.
thank you. Yeah, and so we really realized, the businesses certainly were kind of the catalyst for, why we had the real estate in the first place. Really the profit, the main, I think it was 3/4 of the profit of the sale was from the real estate. The real
Hmm.
estate that we had developed, built a new building, renovated a couple of buildings, really saw value and had a vision for remodeling these buildings to get them to a place where, again, people enjoyed coming to. So we wanted to stay in real estate. We actually bought a commercial triple net lease building
Hmm.
after that, kind of more of a passive, low risk, lower return, but safe long term investment. And um, long story short, and then I'll let you ask more questions. But
Yeah, man.
we
I love that.
starting to learn about real estate syndications. We wanted to get into multifamily even many years prior, but just didn't have the time and bandwidth, and didn't know how. I was saying at that time, how am I going to buy, whatever, fourplex, eightplex, and, I'd try to manage it on my own just naturally. And how am I going to get calls at midnight, to go plunge the toilets?
Yeah.
And I would do that. And, we'll talk about service here in a minute, but, I just didn't feel like that was the right choice at the time. So we started to learn about syndication, where you're pooling together course finances to invest in properties. Also, people's skills and abilities and network, experiences. You're pulling together all of that to invest in properties.
Hmm.
So Cornerstone Investment Group focuses on multifamily, larger multifamily, light value add.
Hmm.
So yeah, I guess on sort of on the personal side, we're involved quite a lot in our church. I'm one of the deacons at our church, so basically helping take care of the physical needs of the church. And we had the opportunity, one of the other deacons works for Samaritan's Purse. And so he encouraged us years ago to have the church start getting involved in going on these disaster relief trips.
Hmm.
And so we've been doing that as a church. I and another deacon have been helping kind of lead some small groups to go. We've gone to Florida and Oklahoma last summer. We went to Maui. If we've actually been to Maui twice, once right after the fires to help with the cleanup,
Hmm.
sifting through ashes, and then also here this last spring to help rebuild homes, which was an incredible feeling to be back there, seeing things cleaned up and starting to be rebuilt was pretty special. So I've always, I guess, enjoyed hands-on stuff. I feel like it's a a great value to people. And really, I think that we're commanded from the Bible to be of service to others and think of others more than yourself. So,
Hmm.
where are those opportunities to serve and really, we talk a lot about adding value and, real estate entrepreneurial space. And it's a great, simple way to add value and impact people and going on these service trips. So,
Absolutely. And that to me, that's what real estate's always been about is, taking number one, a raw piece of dirt and turn it into, places where people live and kids run around in the yard. And then, the value add multifamily from taking a failing distressed building or a building that's just fallen to the wayside with a bunch of deferred maintenance and turning it into something beautiful again. And, number one, giving the people that live there an opportunity to have a better environment, proud of the place they live at. And then the investors being able to, it's a hard game anymore to make money in other assets, in my opinion. A lot of times that stocks, bonds, mutual funds, they ebb and flow. They can be unpredictable. Real estate's always been predictable, in my opinion. It might lose value, but if you hang on to it long enough, it'll come back up. And it's fun to do, right? Because you're serving other people. I've always asked myself the question, how many people am I helping? And I think that would be my question for you is it sounds like if I was to take a shot in the dark here, you really enjoyed throughout your real estate journey, you had built a facility, a place tied to real estate where you could see that you were helping people every day. You were teaching them. And that was really what it was all about was you got more involved in not the emotional side of owning the real estate, but the emotional side of the helping the other people.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, at the height, we had I guess a couple hundred people coming through the door, whether it's children, staff, families, and just other people that were involved in different capacities. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it really was about creating an environment that, you know, our simple purpose statement is building people up so we may in turn build up others. And
I
so
love that. I
and
love
we
that.
had that at Little Sprouts as well. And I would always say, like, whether it's obviously those people that I just mentioned, or even if it's the male man or woman coming in the door, hey, why not? I mean, it really doesn't take much. Of course, you can get complicated, but it doesn't take much to just encourage somebody and try to build them up. So
Yeah. So throughout that journey, was you very calculated through that, or did you kind of just was you led by faith?
definitely more by faith. I think, there's been more calculation as I think we've grown and matured and have had opportunities to learn. Um, I'm kind of reflecting on that. Obviously, these last 3 years since selling, but just in general, actually, the last couple of days, in the beginning, again, I was a teacher and I was quite young. I think I was 26 or 27 when we were starting our business, and so, I thought I knew a lot more than I actually did. But I remember having and maybe this is, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I had a a prayer, and it changed, but I had it typed out so I was sure to, read it and pray each day because, there was a lot going on. We were trying to figure out, I had learned a ton about licensing, but until you get in and need to do it, we're figuring out licensing. We're making decisions on moving rooms and what flooring to put in, and okay, how, staffing, HR stuff. We're building out all that stuff. So definitely was a lot of faith and a lot of prayer and a lot of hard work. It's
Yeah.
18-hour days for 6 days a week and go to church on Sunday and keep working after that for that summer. So I'm actually, I'm thinking that I need to get back to that a bit more of trusting and praying and also reflecting back on some of our skill sets. We've obviously wanted to get into the lighter value add as we've switched into multifamily here, but I'm thinking that there is good opportunity in a bit of a heavier value add. And we frankly humbly have a good track record with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, looking to find where value can be added and in a neighborhood that's, a good neighborhood that just needs a property fixed up to bring value back to the people that live there.
Well, I don't know if this is right or wrong, but I do see it this way, and it's worked for me. God blesses the ones that work, and I believe that there's absolutely nothing wrong with making the most amount of money you can in the shortest period of time and being blessed with that. And as long as you are a good steward, you'll be blessed with more. And I look at every opportunity, you know, of course we can go buy, 3,000 doors of light multifamily value add, and it might make, you know, maybe $2 or $3 million. But if we bought 1,000 doors of distressed property that made us $18 million over the next 3 years, which one would be better? And for me, as long as you're following your faith and doing the right thing and you're not doing anybody wrong and you're lifting up these properties or, developing properties, whatever you're doing, why not make the most amount of money in the shortest period of time? Because at the end of the day, if you have more, you can serve more, you can give more. And like giving is a muscle. You don't know how much you can give until you flex it. And I know for me, I believe that I could make $100 million a month and give away 50 million, and I could probably still have a shortage. And that might be hard to believe, but I do believe that. I believe that there is a need for that much money in this world to go out and serve and to put it to good use. And $50 million probably wouldn't scratch the surface.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I look just real quick at Samaritan's Purse wise. I mean, they've got some incredible donors, and it's not just disaster relief. Like I said, they're doing rebuilding of homes, and they've got a bunch of other divisions that, and they run a well-oiled machine with, great equipment. As far as I know, it's all donor funded, and it easily could be hundreds of millions of dollars donated each year to help fund and serve not just here in the US but also internationally.
Right. Yeah, I think it
Yeah.
comes down to the number one business scale is this. It's either supply or demand. And I rarely meet people that serve like that, like your fellow deacon does, and these organizations that supply is the biggest shortfall. It's not the demand. The demand is there. There's a tremendous amount of demand to be able to place the money. They could afford to hire more people, buy more equipment, serve in more areas, open more, humanitarian efforts in other cities and states, but it's always supply. Like supply is the one that demand is like weighing down the teeter-totter over here and supply is way up here. Like rarely do you ever put enough money here where it weighs the other side. And it's at the end of the day, you're going to take from that. And eventually it balances back out and comes back up. Just to think about a teeter-totter effect on supply and demand. So that's why me personally, I feel that I've been called to serve. And, I've always listened to very wealthy people. If you want to become wealthy yourself, learn to help more people. If you want something in your life, learn to help people get something in their life. And that's why I really feel blessed to be a coach and a mentor to many people in real estate, especially in figuring out, hey, what is the freedom number? What gets you out of what you're doing today? And how can you find a big enough why to work 18 hours a day with not getting tired? Like the mission's there, you know why you're doing it, and you're not burning out. You work at it every day, and it's not like it's hard. And then in turn, you can make more money if you give yourself permission, as long as you do good with it. So why not do that? Why not make way more money every single month, every single year to be able to donate, give more, and do more? Again, I think as long as you're a good steward, there's nothing wrong with thinking that way.
Yeah, that's great. I've termed that time, purpose, freedom of time to live more purposefully. And, I've also got a passion for helping people, think about that. Like what is that? There's a lot of people in this world, especially in our country, that have all the freedom of time in the world. Go to not just any big city, but any big city, and you'll see people sitting around with all the freedom of time in the world. But a lot of them are without purpose,
Yes.
unfortunately. So that's not really what we aspire to, is it?
No, it is not.
Yeah, sitting on the beach and drinking Mai Tais for 24/7, every day of the year sounds great, but you know, something that I had to kind of wrestle through when we sold, because we were obviously very busy and very invested. We were kind of all hands on deck, all in. And once that was gone, I realized there was quite a bit, and as we were getting ready to sell, there was excitement. There was excitement for change of pace, um, change of what we were doing work wise, and being able to take a little bit of a breather. But I realized that I was looking more of freedom from something versus what am I aiming to have freedom to? And obviously
Sure.
that gets into purpose, like what's going to make you feel purposeful. And I actually feel that most of us could feel quite purposed, and we should feel purpose no matter what we're doing. I mean, as a Christian, no matter what we do, we're supposed to do it for the glory of God. So whether that's mowing the lawn, or
Yeah.
investing in real estate, or doing things that we just feel alive, that we, like you said, we can do 18 hours a day. What if we changed our perspective a little bit and started enjoying what we're doing right here and right now in the situation we are, a bit more, and we felt that there was purpose in doing that. And then maybe there's a little bit more freedom of headspace to think about, okay, well, what does more purposeful look like, and how am I working backwards, like where am I wanting to go? And I was the same, like a lot of us never thought about that. We're just doing the grind day after day, and we're doing what everybody else is doing, and I'm not faulting anybody for that,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
stopping and thinking and reflecting really can be quite impactful.
But that's the magic moment for me is, and I had to learn through that. My asset managers, my property managers, well, mostly my property manager, one of the biggest property management groups, the manager that was managing about 1,200 units for us, she had heard me talking to somebody else, and she said, "Mr. Austin, you don't seem very retired. I know you said you retired from at age 36 from corporate America, and you're 100% retired now. But I watch you work. I see the things that you do. I see the construction you manage. I see how much you work with our team. You don't seem very retired, sir." I said, "Retirement means something completely different for me." I said, "For me, retirement at 36 was the ability to only do whatever I want to do that's going to make the biggest impact. It means that I have 100% control of my time. And no, I'm not that guy that wants to go sit on the beach drinking Mai Tais, even though I could. I won't, because my work is not done. I enjoy the journey, the doing, the helping. That's what I enjoy. It's not, I love taking a breath and sitting outside, just enjoying nature and listening and getting in touch and getting grounded. But at the same time, I enjoy what I believe is serving, and by, improving people and improving communities, and just, I could work at it hours. Like you've seen me at a conference, and I could do that 24 hours a day, because the amount of energy I get talking with people and helping people and giving them guidance, and just finding that aha moment in that conversation, or from one conversation to the next. And, that one gives you goosebumps, like your hair stands up. Like, I could do that nonstop. And I think back about Jesus, and we're watching The Chosen right now. And, when he went out on and just preached, and he went and did it for days, and there was just so many times that you just seen that man just work so hard. But I don't think it was work for him. He was just sharing the good word. He was just speaking in the parables and helping other people, and people just sat and listened. And he just continued to do that. And I think about that, and I think that's what real owning your time is to have the ability to go and do whatever you would like to do in whatever place you feel pulled to. Just like I had a phone call this morning, first one And he said, Eddie, I was thinking of you were the person that could help me save this business. And he told me how it all came about. He said, look, man, I prayed. And I know you're a faith-based man. You're a faith-based entrepreneur. I see your posts all the time. You're always speaking the good word. You're a good man. It shows. And I prayed and I made a Facebook post and I was sitting there waiting on it to be answered. And suddenly your post popped up. And I thought, why didn't I think of Eddie? And I said, you know what? I think sometimes God has a great sense of humor. He's a funny guy sometimes, how he does his mysterious work. And he called and he said, Eddie, this is my problem. Can you help? I was like, yeah, man, this is what I do. This is exactly what I do. And the cool part is I'm not tied down to these other things. So that means that I can go that direction. I can go travel to here. I can go do that and help this man and his family. And I think that's what it's all about, is it's getting that time freedom to be able to come and go as you please.
Yeah, having the space to be able to be flexible and being prepared. So if it's always chaos and you're always running behind, and a lot of times I do feel that way, but really preparing to have that flexibility, have that freedom, whether it's, honestly, I'm working right now on organizing our shed and our garage and also just the house in general. So I feel more equipped. I've got some tools and people like to borrow the tools, and
Do they bring
that's a
them back?
blessing, but if it's not organized and clean and orderly, then, it gets to be a bit chaotic. And I think that can happen in our heads also,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
so having that, whatever you want to call it. I've heard it called margins before, like leaving some margin, and obviously a clean, orderly margin, like margins on the old line paper that we used to do our schoolwork on, leaving margins for the ability to be flexible and go help somebody out when that time is needed.
I say it this way. I'm a huge proponent of time blocking and making sure that I block time for just like space like this. Like my phone is off, away from me. This is my time. This is the only thing I'm focused on during this time. I'm not paying attention to the 80% of the noise that's going on in the world. I'm paying attention to the 20% of my time right now. And that makes the biggest margins for me, is when I truly focus on the 20%, the most important. The other 80% just kind of falls into place on its own. But I think when we try to control the 80% around us, when we try to control everything, when we put our hands in every single thing, it's not achievable and we get overwhelmed, and we're not supposed to. A lot of things, I feel like God's supposed to be out here doing these things outside of us. We're supposed to focus on just this internal 20% circle that we're in.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's what I feel, getting clear on your purpose and core involvements of things, duties, responsibilities, relationships in your life really helps you to be clear on what you say yes to and what you say no to, and what your skills and passion and, again, purpose is. It makes it a whole lot easier. If you're always trying to do everything, be everything for everybody, there's just, God can do that.
That's it. And that's, I always tell my wife and children to pick your battles. If you fight every battle, you're worn out for the big one that comes. And I know today's message was about humility and also, not being selfless with your time. And I believe that we have to make sure that we're not being selfless. We're not putting ourselves first in many things. We have to have that humility, let other people do other things. Don't fight that battle. Don't try to control every destination, because I think it's most important. I think one of the most important things is knowing where you are and knowing where you are not supposed to be. I think that's super important. I know it's very hard. It has been for me to not say yes to everything, because I can help in so many different areas. That's not where I'm supposed to be. And I realize that, because when I use myself up by saying everything, when that one phone call that came that was like that faith-based alignment, I'm too busy, I can't pay attention to that. I'm sorry. I wish I could. And that gentleman on the other side, he's questioning God right now because he's going, I made this post. I prayed. I made this post. Eddie's name popped up, but Eddie's too busy. We'll never know the exact answer to the way that was supposed to go. But from his side of things, his prayer was answered. But I blocked his blessing by saying I was too busy. And I think that we have to be extremely careful on what we say yes to. I really do. I think we have to, sometimes just go, and I got a lot of decisions to make right now. I don't know which one I'm supposed to make. And I think that's when you got to get quiet. I think that's when you got to step back and sit down and organize the house, organize the shed, and go, where am I supposed to go next? Where am I being really called? I got a lot of opportunities, but which one am I supposed to follow? And I think when we're quiet long enough, it really starts to make sense which one. Or maybe none of them are coming up in front of you, but your phone rings and, hey, Joe, can you help us with this real estate deal? It's a little bit heavier lift. I know you have experience, and I don't know why, man. I thought of you. I thought you'd be the best person to help me with that. Boom. Let's go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it takes patience. I think the number one thing I've learned with spiritual faith and entrepreneurship is having restraint. I think restraint and patience is probably one of the hardest things that you have to continue to exercise, but because they're very hard. You get very driven and you just want to go, you want to go, you want to go. And next thing you know, you're way down a road you were never supposed to be on. Ask me how I know. And your kingdom can crumble because you built your kingdom on, pebbles and sand. It wasn't built on the foundation. You were just out here gripping white knuckled on the wheel, just going as fast as you could go in the wrong direction. And he was making the path really hard, but I wasn't listening.
Yeah. Discernment and discipline. I was just thinking about, we were probably 2 years into our business ownership. Little Sprouts is the name of the child care center. And, we had grown, but after that growth, you kind of get over these humps and then there's a dip and then there's, more growth. And we were feeling a little bit, I guess pretty discouraged. There's always a need for more finances to pay teachers more and et cetera, et cetera. And of course, you don't want to charge the families too much. And so I had decided that, I was going to go back to teaching and I would still support the business, but, I would teach that next year. It was probably about this time of year, late July. I think it was even later in August, a couple weeks in. So we're kind of getting right down to crunch time there. If you get in a job, you're usually going to get it before the school year starts. So I had gone through, a bunch of the stuff, updated my resume, started looking for jobs. There ended up being a kindergarten job in a town right next to us here. And that's perfect. Maybe that is God. And long story short, praise the Lord, I never even got an interview, which, a male in early childhood education is kind of hard to come by. So usually it's, somewhat easy to at least get an interview. And I actually knew a couple of people from high school and one guy from college that, worked in that school district and nothing, didn't get an interview. And man, am I thankful that,
Yeah.
I wasn't thrilled at the time, but
Yeah.
I'm
Of
thankful
course.
that even God said no for me.
That's sometimes not easy to understand, is it?
No.
I like how you said that. No, because, there's sometimes, I'll be honest, man, I've had some great phone calls and things put in my lap. And I was like, man, this is it. That was that phone call I was waiting on. It was this, that was it. And then a couple weeks down the road, like that blessing had sailed and the people weren't calling me back and it wasn't working out. And I'm like, I thought this was it. That's what I'm supposed to do. And it's so hard. It's like, oh, man.
That's something that I've been thinking about a lot. Is the Bible in a lot of places tells us to be sober minded, and I've always kind of wrestled with, how much emotion do we have in situations? How it feels like, there's a lot of feelings that fly around these days. And, I still wrestle with that, but, I think we get caught up in emotions of things. Oh, this seems like it's the perfect opportunity, the perfect time, et cetera, et cetera. I think sometimes we can get clouded by our emotions and not kind of thinking clearly and logically through situations. And from my perspective, that should be, looking to God more and looking in his word more of what he says, and looking for direction there instead of, what I'm feeling is maybe the best opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Amen to that. So let's move into the lightning round. So what's the favorite book that changed your life?
Well, of course, as I've mentioned here, I would say the Bible, and continues to change and mold me.
Absolutely.
Other
I've
than the
found
Bible, what's
found
that?
that's the best business book I've ever picked up. There's so many biblical principles in that really reflect to entrepreneurship, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree. I would say from a business entrepreneurship, probably traction,
Oh yeah.
best traction, just from a, simplifying business and organizational structure, meeting structure. It's really been a helpful, whether it really kind of helped us turn things around at Sprouts not too long after that time I mentioned earlier. And it's something that we implement in real estate as well. It's just a very simple, easy to digest, you know, tools that you can use, whether you're utilizing all of it or just a few things. So,
Second question, and I'll give you two ways to answer this one since the conversation has been so great and faith based. Favorite quote or Bible verse?
favorite quote or Bible verse? Yeah, it's a paraphrase, and I'll have to get back to you on the actual verse. I'm just terrible at
Yep, I get
memorizing
it. I'm
things,
trying to
but
get better.
building people up so they may in turn build up others. Building people up so they may see Christ as the hope, and that's really been an encouragement to me over recent years, especially.
Absolutely. I love that. How do you use AI in your daily life?
More and more by the day. We have been using ChatGPT lately to pull together some analyzing tools, essentially. Neighborhood research is, for an example, helping us get a score basically on, hey, we're plugging in this property. We built some things out, we gave it some criteria, but it gives us a score so we can at least have an initial pulse on a property, crime rating, um, even things like the walk score. There's I think there's 15 or so criteria that we have there, and it's crazy how ChatGPT can do that.
Man, it's
Even things like having the uploading the OM into ChatGPT and kind of teaching it what we want to pull from it, and giving us like an executive summary report. So it's easy to have that summary of the property instead of trying to dig back through the OM to look that info up. So
it's a powerful tool, and I think everybody should embrace it and use it for
yeah,
sure.
I agree.
Well, Joe, where can people find you?
Yeah, I'm on Facebook, Joe Lawrence. Also on LinkedIn. I can put the links in the bio, and Cornerstone Investment Group has a Facebook page, and also cornerstoneinvest.biz is the website. And my email is joe@cornerstoneinvest.biz.
Thank you for sharing that. Joe, this has been a wonderful time spent, man. I always enjoy doing these podcasts, especially with amazing guests like yourself. And I really feel like the audience will really get some value from this conversation for sure. And I want to just again thank you for being vulnerable and talking about some of the things that's not openly discussed as much today. And I think they should be. There's definitely a movement that's going on in the world right now with more people are turning to Christ and really getting real with it. I think COVID kind of humbled a lot of people And I know, including myself, I know I've been humbled by business a bunch, and I always felt like there was no other place to turn. Like there was nobody that could come and save me. That wasn't essentially true. There was one person. And I really felt like all other options had been removed. And the only place I could turn was to hit my knees and go, I don't know what's next. I need some help here.
Praise the Lord for that. Yeah, another verse that I probably should have said is count it all joy when you meet trials of various kinds.
Oh, yeah.
And it goes on to say that, essentially that's for your good and God, molding and shaping you and drawing you to Him. Uh, be okay with challenges and trials, especially as a Christian. It'll mold and shape you and grow you,
Well, I
draw
think
you to Him.
when you're truly following what you're supposed to, it's not an easy life. And it was never supposed to be, because we're supposed to face trials and tribulations. And just like the book of Job, God didn't save him. He said, do anything you want, but don't kill him. And that was really, God lets us be tested. And I think that we have to be okay with that. And it's made me a better person to be tested over and over again and realize that I got to do the right thing in this moment. That's how I'm measured. I'm being watched. I'm forgiven for my sins, but I'm also being watched. What I do in that moment and what the decisions I make, are you feeding the good wolf or the bad one? Which one are you feeding more?
There's work to be done, and we're to be obedient to Him.
That's right. Well, Joe, thank you so much for your time, man. This has been absolutely amazing. And hey, listeners, if this resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe. And I'm asking you to do this. Please share this with other people. We do this. I know it's on my heart. I love to serve and I love to make an impact. This last 43 minutes has been absolutely amazing. And I know for Joe as well, I'm going to speak for you for a moment. I know Joe would also love for this podcast to change somebody's life. And because that's who we are. That's what we do. That's why we align. That's why we're on this podcast together. So we'll see you on the next episode. Thank you all so much and have a great day.